Thanks for joining us again on Spirit Talk. Today we have a very special guest. We're going to go back in time. First of all, how is everybody doing? How is everybody handling the Mercury retrograde personally? It's kind of kicking my ass a little bit. Shavaun, how's Mercury treating you?
Well, I'm pretty grouchy this morning. Everything seems to just be annoying and nothing seems to be working easily and effortlessly. So, yeah, it's one of those kind of days, but it's all good.
It's all good. Yeah, we'll get through it like we get through everything else. So tell us about our special guest.
We're going to talk about Missy again with one of Missy's best friends, Tammy. Tammy was in the mix of all of it before the murder and had to deal with the killer on a violent basis on numerous occasions. So we're going to talk about that. Hey Tam, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hi. Wow. Retrograde has not been so kind to me. I seem to be falling down a lot. I've taken a couple of tumbles the last couple of days, so a little klutzy and yeah, temperament's a little bit off, but surviving. Hi.
Tam, let's talk about a little bit about the summer before Missy was murdered. Can you tell me some stories?
It was an okay summer, actually. It was pretty nice. I was home. I had just graduated high school. Had everything to look forward to. Was getting ready to go into the Navy. Had a little boyfriend. Was visiting, hanging out a lot with Missy. I had lived in a different city for school, and so I'd come back home for the summer. And then it got a little violent towards middle to the end of the summer, and realized now that's what led up to Missy's murder, which was in October of that year.
You knew Karen and Laura and Eva and Missy. And how would you describe, maybe I guess you're gonna, it's kind of tricky because we have four girls here and each one plays such a different role. From Karen being the mastermind to Eva, maybe having more of a participation in it than any of us knew, and Laura maybe wasn't as part of the premeditation as we all had thought all this time. So let's
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had four completely separate things happening. We had Missy and Karen were on the outs. Missy and Eva were on the outs that summer. In the beginning, when I came back, I didn't even realize that there was all these, there was a lot of stuff. You got to even go back a little bit further. Missy had been beaten up, and I had come back to go to court with her because of the other episode that we realize now was most likely also set up by Karen. Karen was my childhood bully that ended up murdering my best friend, somebody that I cared about very, very much. She used to pick on me, even though she was younger than me. She always had somebody bigger than her that would help her too. She would chase me home from school. She was a very mean girl. And we didn't have a label back then other than bully. Yeah, it was a bully, but bullying wasn't, a term that happens. And most bullying doesn't turn to a completely violent, horrific murder from being a bully, maybe, I don't know. I don't know about some of these other serial killers, how they started out completely, but she was a crazy one. And I think that then you have Laura, who I believe got sucked in. And yes, you said it. Back then we looked at her and Eva like they were, or her and Karen, like they were both the monsters that completely were behind it, because that's what the media was saying, and that was what the papers were saying at that time. And that was all we knew from when they were found out. And we had 3 years before we found out for sure that it was indeed Karen and Laura and Eva that were involved in this murder. And the Eva, she could have had more to do with it than we're realizing. She claims she didn't see it. She went back and left and didn't see what actually happened. But I feel that she was just as responsible, because 3 years for her to stand out and say something makes you just as responsible for that, keeping it to yourself, and you walked away with absolutely no consequence of that. And then there's Laura, who has admitted her part in it, and that she did get sucked in. I believe she was pulled in, and yes, she did the deed, but it wasn't premeditated on her part. She was a victim. I feel like she was a victim in this too. Karen, this was her. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing that day when she took Missy that far away from home on a ruse. She knew what she was doing when she coaxed her into the water, however she did, and turned Laura against her. She knew what she was doing way before that, Shavaun. She knew what she was doing that summer when we got into a physical fight because I was going to protect Missy in the park that night. That was a really, really scary time. But after being picked on as a child growing up with her in the teen years, and then me coming back and having graduated high school, I had had enough. And there was an incident in the park when I got into a physical fight with Karen, protecting Missy for that reason, because I said enough is enough. I can't, you can't do this to me anymore, and you're not going to fight with her. You're going to have to get through me first. And I think that was it. She was already planning it back then. She knew what she was doing. She's the monster behind all of this. And nobody's going to tell me any differently. It's just not.
So I do have to say, I'm feeling Missy behind you. It almost was like she was jumping on your back and hugging you and telling you how much she loves you, and being really happy to see you, and not wanting you to be sad about this.
There will always be a part of me that feels, and thank you, Missy, I know you're there, that I wish she had just not gone. I wish she had just not gone, or not gone without me.
Can you talk about the morning that you spoke to Missy on the phone the morning that she was murdered?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that phone call? I think she might have told you about a dream she had. So
She had already talked about the dream that she had that she was going to die. And she had already discussed with more than one person the song she wanted played at her funeral. And when she discussed it with me, I was like, no, you need to not talk about things like this. You're 17 years old. You have your whole life in front of you. She said, no, she had a dream that she died. And that morning, she was going to come up to my house at some point. She had said she got a call from Laura, and she was going to go hang out at a park, and she would see me later. And that later never happened.
Sabrina, are you picking up on anything?
Well, I definitely pick up that if they wouldn't have caught Karen, she would have committed more murders. Because as Tammy is talking, I'm like, yeah, if they wouldn't have caught her, she would have done stuff. She would have done some other stuff. I don't know if I would call her a serial killer. But I definitely see that she would have killed again.
Hey, Shavaun.
I think that she was on the verge of becoming a serial killer, because she was trying to get other people killed, including Tammy. She tried to, Karen was in the house when I was in the house. I witnessed a lot of behavior from Karen, and I witnessed her trying to turn us against Tammy. Now, what Karen didn't know is that Tammy and I had had a bond from earlier that year. We had just met, but Tammy helped me on a really tough day, which we'll talk about another time. But when Karen was trying to convince us that it was Tammy that had something to do with the murder, I knew that there was no way. But to be honest, I think she might have, she kept, this is what narcissists do. They keep on and on and on and on and on and on. They don't shut up and tell you like, okay, Tammy had something to do with it. You know what I mean? And there was one day in particular where she had her daughter, Stephanie, and she took her daughter into Irene's room, and she brought the daughter back out after about 5 minutes. And Stephanie said, Tammy hit Missy over the head with a rock.
Wait, this is Karen's daughter?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, narcissists do that, right? Narcissists pin people against one another, right? Isn't that
Oh,
what narcissists do?
Oh, this was I wasn't the only one.
No.
I was not the only one that she was doing this to. She was trying to make so many different people look like they were involved. Oh God, the fight outside my house after I had a memorial party of sorts for Missy at my grandmother's house after Missy's death. And Karen showed up and she had Stephanie, and my grandmother remembers, and I remember Stephanie saying she didn't want to go home that day. She didn't want to go with mommy. And then that night there was a fight that led to somebody being hospitalized, and she made the whole thing happen. She set this person up. I don't.
You can say who the person is that she set up. Go ahead.
She set up Randy. And Randy got his ass beat. And oh yeah, I forgot. It's grown up time. I'm not sitting in front of a court. I can use my potty mouth. I don't know if you remember, Shavaun, my testimony in the trial got me in trouble because I kept cussing, and the judge had said he had asked me to tell the truth, and I was repeating it, and Vic and I both kind of dropped the F-bomb or in repeat, and so we both got in trouble. She tried to set up Randy and got him beat a bloody pulp. My grandmother came out and told him to knock it off. He ended up at the hospital and could have died. Very, very well could have died. They beat the living crap out of him. And he had nothing to do with Missy's murder. And finding out, realizing that other people knew too for all those years and didn't bother to chime in and say, and that, as far as I'm concerned, makes them just as guilty as the ones that actually committed the crime. Those just holding it in and not telling us and letting the family suffer and be tortured the way they were for all that time. And Karen living in the house and everything that she did with Irene, it's like the murderer was in our face the whole time. That's horrible. Irene didn't get to grieve the loss of Missy the way that she should have. She shouldn't have had to have grieved her loss to begin with. But she certainly didn't get to grieve the loss when she's got the murderer right underneath her nose, living in her house, eating off, the plates and sleeping in the bed that our daughter had slept in. So
I was going to ask you, did she sleep in Missy's room?
There's a movie, A Killer Among Friends, that was made in 1991. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because there's so much of that movie that isn't accurate. I don't think there's one scene in there that's 100% accurate. And they make it seem like Karen moved into Missy's room. She didn't.
No,
she slept in there. I think she slept on the floor a couple nights. She would mostly sleep on the couch in the living room or on the floor. And, in a previous episode, we talked about her maybe having a thing for Missy. Well, there was one night she was sleeping next to me and I woke up with her hand on my thigh and it just felt weird. So the girl was in the house 24/7, and she had her daughter there half the time. We fed her, we clothed her, we took care of her. When Karen was out getting drunk, um, Karen is just a complete and total monster, and she's free. And when you
Yep.
said earlier, Sabrina, about her being, she would killing more, I mean, absolutely, she was on the verge of becoming a true blue serial killer. She enjoyed the power of killing Missy. She enjoyed being in power. Um, just
The
playing this huge
control.
hoax. It was a hoax with the family. And um, do you want to tell that story about what happened when you got married? Either the one where you got married or the one where you had your car. Remember what happened to your car?
Well, I can do both. Okay, so my I came home one night and my house, I had a window that faced out from the bathroom out to the street where my car was. My windows were rolled down, and somebody drove by. It was Karen. I was in the house. It was like one of those surreal moments you can't get out fast enough, laughing, and they threw fireworks into my car. I had a Thunderbird at the time, caught fire to my car. Fire trucks had to come. Another time when I got married the first time, boy, was that a big fucking mistake. And Missy's probably laughing behind me right now. If anybody's feeling her, she's probably laughing right now. That was a big fucking mistake. But at my wedding, somebody pulled up out front and delivered a box. And it was brought in and set on the table with all of the gifts. And then when we went to go open the gift, there was a card on the top that said, "Good luck on your life of bullshit together." And when I opened it up, it was a box of dog shit. And it was horrifying in front of all of my wedding guests. And I found out that Karen had set that up with somebody. And yeah, I mean, who does something like that? Who does something like that?
I'm very, very mean, unhappy person.
A very unhappy person, but she was a monster.
Yeah,
She is a monster.
She's
No amount of finding God and no amount of book writing and no amount of time served, which was never going to be enough time served, can change the fact that she is a monster. And she has never been fully held accountable for her part in Missy's death.
So I think that's part of why I started the documentary, is that we always knew that Karen, this was a first degree murder charge on Karen's part for sure. And once I dug deep from just looking at the transcript, because when you say, did I hear what happened at your trial? I had no idea what happened during the trial, pretty much because I wasn't allowed to go watch the trial before I testified. And then after I testified, I had to go to work. And so I never knew all these incriminating details that, had I known, I might have been able to put the pieces together a little bit better back then. But, there were so many layers to this crime, and there was so much betrayal and backstabbing on many levels. And earlier today, before, when I was meditating, I could hear Missy, and she told me to talk to you about the time with Richie Southwood. Does that make any sense? Do you know, was there a story of you and Richie Southwood? Or something about Karen and Richie Southwood? Did he get her pregnant?
Is that who got Karen pregnant?
I don't know.
Was that the second time? I don't know. I had heard she had abortions, so I wouldn't be surprised. Richie, I'm not feeling a Richie. The Richie that, I don't know. I'm gonna have to really think about it. It's very possible that, yeah. I know that Missy had told me, like I said, I was gone. It was my senior year and I went to school in a different city. I didn't go to high school in the Valley. So I was only there when like I would come down for weekends or I would come for the summers. And but that may have been. I know that Missy did tell me that Karen had had an abortion, that Stephanie was obviously not her only child. And I also, didn't I figure out the dates that Karen was pregnant when we got into a fight and possibly pregnant when Missy died?
Oh, Karen was pregnant when Missy died. She was about 3 months pregnant, and I think she aborted the baby at approximately almost 5 months. She was
So then,
this.
so then that when I got into the physical fight with Karen, she would have been pregnant. And maybe Richie, maybe that's what Missy's trying to say. Maybe Richie was the father of that baby.
Supposed to
Richie
be
wasn't the
Andy.
person in the park when I got in the fight, was he?
I don't know. Sabrina, are you picking up on anything? I mean, here's the thing. I think it's tricky because I'm in the middle of all of this, and I'm just curious if you're picking up on anything.
I'm just trying to figure out who the fuck aborts a baby at 5 months. How do you do that?
How do you murder your best friend?
I was just going to say the same thing.
I get it. I'm just kind of like, I have to be really honest with you. Sometimes people trip me out with the shit that they do. Like, I just don't get it sometimes. I just don't understand the human behavior. I don't know. Hold on.
My dog is being very, very weird right now. Okay. Do you need to just...
What's Karen's sign? Do you know? Anybody know?
She's a Libra.
No. Oh, Karen, you make us Libras look bad. Dude, seriously, I'm a Libra. You know what the date of his? I wanna. What's her?
I think her the birthday she celebrates. It's like the 11th or what, or the 12th.
Right. Oh, that's right.
She doesn't know her actual date.
Yeah, I remember. I remember Shavaun telling me that. I mean, that's kind of sad. I don't know. Let me psych on her. Can you guys give me a second? I just want to see what I pick up.
Yeah.
Definitely, this girl would have committed murder. This woman believes a lot of her own lies.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all. Not at all.
She's definitely pissed off she got caught because she was really masterminding her way not to get caught. I feel that very strongly. But she slipped up. Like I'll be honest, I don't really know the particulars of the case. And I remember Shavaun telling me about the movie that's on, they play it a lot on Lifetime actually, because isn't Hattie Duke the mom? Doesn't she play Irene?
Yes.
Yeah, but that story is that's not what we lived. Right. That's not the summer I lived. That's not.
I believe you. I totally believe you. But I mean, I never saw it, probably because I knew it was not true.
Well, she slipped up. Shavaun, we know when she slipped up. She slipped up.
Literally, it looks like she slipped up like about 3 or 4 times, which I don't know. You tell me.
One in particular, and Shavaun, you and I have talked about this. She showed up at my house right before it came out that she was involved. She showed up disheveled at my house and was asking me if I knew about Missy's hair being cut.
Oh yeah, she was spinning because she got scared.
The next day, she sobered up.
You know who scared her though? Because I'm literally psyching on her right now. Laura scared her. Because she was afraid of what Laura was going to do. She thought Laura would do something, say something, do something. I don't know, because I don't know what Laura did or didn't do. So did Laura say something or do something?
No, my take on what happened was that, and this is just my own personal theory, was what happened over the couple of weeks right before it came out, was she showed up at my house. She started talking about Missy's hair being cut. Nobody knew about Missy's hair being cut. This was not something that had been shared publicly in anything. I make a phone call to the house. I talk to one of the brothers. I say, hey, somebody's, is this true? Missy's hair was all cut off or was cut off. And I get a, where did you hear that? Tam, where did you hear that? Oh my God. I said, Karen showed up at my house and she was obviously on one. And she was insistent telling me, I mean, I remember this day, it was on the side of my house. I lived in my grandmother's garage. It was a little mini apartment. And I remember her showing up, coming through the gate. Her shirt was just disheveled and her skirt was buttoned up wrong. And she just looked like she just crawled out of the back seat of a car, wasted and just got laid or something fucking ridiculous. And she's telling me about how Missy's hair got cut. That she had heard that Missy had had her hair cut off. So then a few days pass and Eva goes to the police and they send her home. She shows up with the police department, tells them that she knows who did it, and they send her home. And then the next day, somehow they call her back in. I don't know how that all played out, but they pull in Karen, they pull in Laura. Karen says Laura does it. Laura said Karen did it, that they both did it, but that Karen was, and then the next thing I knew, it was trial. We were just like, I remember getting the call and hearing. So we finally have Missy's killer. And I was like, okay. And I believe it was Irene. Irene's like, are you sitting down? Are you ready for this? And I'm like, yes, I am. Okay. Well, it was Karen. Well, no shit. I wasn't even the slightest bit surprised. Well, yes, we were right the whole time. My grandmother said from day one, when Irene showed up at my house looking for Missy, Karen did this. Karen is behind this. Then she says, and Laura. And I was like, what? Or no, and Eva. And Eva. And I said, what? Eva? Okay. All right. Those two are in cahoots. Still not as surprised. And she said Laura. And I was like, no fucking way. Are you kidding me all this time? It was Laura. Laura got sucked in. I never felt like she masterminded. I never got that feeling in all of that time. Laura was she was withdrawn after Missy's murder. She was the first one to show up at my party and write on the little books her name, and because we had like a sign-in thing, and then she left early. And Laura was always so close to her dad, and she was not. She just I just couldn't wrap my head around Laura having anything to do with that.
So I just want to say one thing. Laura was the last person to see Missy alive, and they say that the last person to see the person alive always knows more than what they're saying. So in a way, even though Laura never made sense back then, Laura and Missy weren't that great of friends. They portrayed her as being one of Missy's best friends. And in all actuality, it was Karen and Eva that were more that way. But yeah, Laura never made sense. She never made sense. And she always had remorse from the get-go, which I wanted to talk about that because I sort of feel like in a previous episode, it might seem like I'm a little bit nonchalant about Laura. I mean, Laura held Missy's head under the water until she stopped breathing. So she murdered her. Out of all three girls, though, Laura's the only one that served the proper time in prison. She was in prison for second-degree murder, which I believe that's what it was. She did not wake up that day thinking she was going to go murder somebody.
No.
Karen was hoping to murder somebody and hoping to get everybody else to do it for her. Karen had been threatening Missy all summer long, and she was out to get her. There was no coming back from Karen's hate. And if she wouldn't have got her that day, she would have found another way to get her, whether it was with Laura or whether it was with somebody else.
Right.
But yeah, Karen plotted the whole thing. I don't think that she actually knew for sure that it would happen that day, but it all went according to her plan. I also still feel like she really manipulated Eva, but Eva wasn't innocent. You know, there's a story that Christopher Avila told me. And, you know, Eva lived at Irene's house that year before Missy was murdered. I think she lived there in March for maybe like 6 weeks. And Chris used to brush Missy's hair all the time. And one day when Missy got up from getting her hair brushed by Chris, Eva asked if Chris could brush her hair. And I don't know why, when I found out that story, it just really freaked me out because Eva had they all had such a thing about Missy's hair. I mean, Missy was a beautiful girl, but gosh, she wasn't like a hoity-toity, like, let me try to be better than everybody else. She was a Vans wearing t-shirt jean girl. She didn't wear barely any makeup. I think she put Vaseline on her eyelashes for mascara. And, you know, she blew dry her hair. I mean, all of us girls take care of our hair, and they just had so much resentment over her hair to the point that they cut it off of her head. And again, with Laura, it's not that Laura's the only one that has shown a true remorseful feeling. And I think, yeah, and I think as a family, and you know, we're experiencing this right now as a country, when there is an assault or a crime or a murder, and the person that did it isn't sorry or isn't remorseful or isn't trying to fix it, the healing doesn't really happen. So over so many years, with Laura being so remorseful and also very willing to help me with the documentary, very willing. She took every phone call. She told the story the same time, the same way every time. She didn't change it up or anything. So for my own healing and our family's own healing, it was a lot easier to have forgiveness and moving on, because we can't bring Missy back. It should have never happened to begin with. But you know, I'm not sitting here hating on Laura, because at least she's sorry for what she did, and she is truly sorry. That I know.
I feel she, from the get-go, she had written me a letter when she first went down, and she told me she had nothing else to lose at that point. She was going to prison. There was nothing changing that. She had no reason to lie. She said then in that letter to me, I wish I could still find it. And somebody guide me to that damn letter. I don't know where it went. But I felt that she told me the truth, and that, yes, she ultimately did the deed, but she was brought into it by Karen. She specifically said that if she could go back and change things, she would trade her life for Missy's in an instant. And she knows what she did was wrong. She never tried to get out early from prison. She never fought she took her accountability. And that speaks volumes. And I do. I forgive Laura. It was hard to find forgiveness, but for her, I have found some.
I think that's why Missy forgives Laura. I'm listening to you guys really talking about this, and I'm like, well, that would make sense. I mean, I remember a few episodes ago when Missy was talking, she was saying she forgave Laura. And that would make sense why. You know, it's like everything is about intention. Did she really intend to kill Missy? Probably not. Was she pushed into doing it? Yes. Did it happen? Unfortunately. But Laura does have so much remorse that it makes sense why she said to me, well, she said to us, it was on our podcast, she says, I forgive Laura. And that's beautiful, because that means that also Missy's soul is healing on some level. When you forgive, even when you're a spirit and you've crossed over, you could still have resentment. You know, you got to work through that. But that's good. So it's a healing. This is a healing for Missy. Hopefully, on some level of consciousness for the family too. You know,
I hope so. I really hope so.
you healed a little bit. I mean, you'll probably never fully heal from this tragedy because, you know, I from an outside perspective, I can only imagine how everybody's feeling and the anger. I mean, I'm fucking pissed off, and I didn't even know, you know. Um, if Missy is willing to forgive Laura, at least it's a step in the right direction, you know.
I don't think I'm going to be able to even come close to the healing that I know I need personally. Maybe that's selfish feeling until I know that a certain somebody is held more accountable for her part in Missy's death.
And
She still claims she didn't do it. And it's like bull fucking shit. Just own it at this point. Tell the goddamn truth for once right now. Just speak up and tell the truth. But she's not going to do that because she's going to continue to lie and lie and lie. And, you know, she's going to have to meet her maker eventually. And yeah, I just, and Eva, she wasn't held really accountable for her part either. And her being so petrified or terrified of Karen, I just find it really hard to believe that for 3 fucking years, none of you had the opportunity to go and tell the truth.
Oh, I have to jump in. One of the things Laura told me, she came to Irene's house 3 different times.
I believe it.
Tell Irene what happened. And every time she went to Irene's house, Karen answered the door.
Oh my God, of course. Wants to control fucking everything.
Mm-hmm. That was why she was there constantly. I backed away. I couldn't stand the fact that she was in Missy's house. I knew that we were on the outs that summer. I wasn't buying into the, oh, I just lost my best friend bullshit. She was violent. She wanted to kick Missy's ass. She would have, if I hadn't been there that night in the park, she would have beat Missy to a pulp. I mean, I got into, I mean, and in front of other people. And then the stupid knife that came out. And I remember telling Eva, put the damn knife away. You know, unless you're really going to use that, you better put it away. And I had some injuries. I still have a scar. It's my Harry Potter scar. Shavaun knows it tingles sometimes. Stupid bitch, right there where she scratched me. And so, yeah, I'm just not buying it. And yeah, I'm sure Laura did want to tell the truth, and it had to be very scary for her. But it also, it was 3 years. There was 3 years. And
I'm sorry, I just want to jump in and tell a story about Eva and how she was supposedly so scared to come forward because of Karen. So in the movie A Killer Among Friends, they hype it all up and have the Karen character put a knife to Eva's face. Well, here's what really happened. So Eva was living with Karen at the time of the murder. Her and Eva and her boyfriend were in one room. Karen and her daughter were in another room. So the night of the murder happens. And I also believe Karen went back up there the night of the murder to take off all of Missy's rings because all of her rings were missing from her fingers. And Laura doesn't remember seeing her take them off. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. The day after the murder, and this is all in the trial, Eva and Karen start to get in a fight, and a fist fight starts to happen because of the murder from the night before, the day before. And Karen goes into the kitchen to grab a steak knife and comes after Eva. And Johnny, Eva's boyfriend, pulls out a shotgun and puts it in Karen's face. And at that point, Eva and Johnny move out. They move out like within the day and leave. But not long after that, Eva joined the Glow Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling team. She was in training as a female wrestler. I've interviewed a couple of the wrestlers. Eva was really good. She was strong. She was tough. And she actually made it as Broadway Rose, but then found out that her brother committed suicide. And that was in 1987. It was like November-ish of 87. And it wasn't until July of 88 that she finally came forward saying that her brother had died. And now she knows what the Avila family feels like and what they're going through. And so she had to come forward and tell the truth. But again, she still waited like
Another
7
year.
months, 8 months, 9 months after her brother died. It's because she knew she was a participant. Now, not a participant in the murder, a participant in the hair cutting, which was the start of the murder. I know the minute they cut her hair, there was no turning back.
No.
Really,
Where?
there was no
And-
turning back.
I'm sorry, but that was the point I was trying to get to with the hair cutting and the Eva part, was they had that she all that time, and here Karen shows up and tells me about the hair being cut off, and then I tell the family about it, and then I think what happened was that Karen got scared and said, "Hey guys, I fucked up. I got drunk last night and I let something out that I hadn't told anybody." And it was Tammy. I told Tammy about Missy and the hair. And I think that that's when Eva, she probably contacted Eva and said, "Hey, I slipped up. That's the slip up. I'm going to contact Eva and tell Eva I slipped up. I'm going to contact Laura and say I slipped up. I let it slip to Tammy," when she knows damn well I'm going to be the first one to say it to somebody else that about her hair being cut, because it was within a week of that Eva goes to the police and tells them that she was involved, that she saw what happened, but she didn't actually participate. But she was so terrified of Karen all this time that she finally came out and told the truth. It's bullshit. I think that that's the ultimate slip up, was that, and all the other little slip ups that she had over the years. This was the one that was going to get her caught. And so they tried to conspire. And how'd that work out? Eva was the first one to run to the police.
I have a question. Who took the hair?
The detective.
The hair was left at the body.
It was left at the body.
Mhm.
Okay, first of
oh.
all, you know, the rings, all the rings, usually killers like to, well, cuckoo killers, you can call them serial killers, whatever. Killer is a killer in my eyes. Sometimes they like to take trophies. You get all the rings that are, see, he agrees. See, who's barking? They agree.
Lady is.
There you go. See, she's agreeing. You take all the rings off. That's like your trophy.
Right.
I always see the rings in a box. I see the rings in this small box. I always see that.
She probably buried him in the backyard.
Life can be crazy.
Yes, it can.
Crazy and cruel. Thank God for the spirits. I'm telling you, man, if it wasn't for spirit, I don't know. I don't think I'd be here right now. Honestly, I wouldn't.
I know I wouldn't. I'm super thankful. And I don't know if I said it earlier. I think I did. And I said, thank you, Missy, for watching over me, because there's been a few times that I give my my guardian angel a run for their money.
I think we all do. I know I drive my spirit nights crazy.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Peace out.